Hello, my friends. This is Miss FB here, and I am going to take you through the Zine project requirements for your air quality investigation zine. So this is going to be a little 8-page zine. Hopefully you watched the video about what is a zine earlier, and if you haven't yet watched that, you might want to stop this and watch that first and then come back to this. So page 1 is going to be your cover. If you're using construction paper, please be sure you trim your paper to 8.5 by 11, because otherwise it's not going to work out well for how everything goes in the end. So on your first page, you'll need a title, and that's going to be your scientific question, like how does the time of year affect particulate pollution, or whatever your scientific question is. Then you will come up with an image related to that topic. I'm going to talk about design elements, or Mr. Lum is actually in your rubric for scoring, so you're going to want to keep those things in mind. You can get that image from anywhere. You can get it off the internet. You can cut it out of a magazine. You can draw it, paint it, whatever, create it on the computer, however you want. And your name, date, period, and Mr. Camman's name. Page 2 is going to be experimental design, and you're going to label that, coincidentally, experimental design. You're going to write a well-developed paragraph. So remember that. That's 5 to 7 sentences. You're going to describe your experimental approach so that your classmates will understand how to perform that investigation and what materials you need. Make sure that this is, again, a complete sentences, well-developed paragraph. Page 3, that's your evidence. You're going to label it evidence to be collected. These labels should go either at the top of your page, or maybe if you want to get fancy, you could put them on the side or something, but they should be clear titles. You can type those out. You can write them by hand, whatever you want. You can cut them out in ransom note letters if you want, but just make sure that all your pages are labeled. So that's going to be 2 to 3 sentences describing the evidence that you're going to collect in order to answer whatever scientific question you pose, and you're going to explain why the evidence is important to the experiment. So you're not just describing the evidence, but you need to add the addition of explaining why it's important. You're going to write 1 to 2 sentences describing how the validity of the data will be ensured. How does the person who is looking at this experiment know that you are collecting valid data? You need to explain that to us. And then you need to come up with an image. Again, any kind of image that you want to use. Okay. Page 4, that's your expected results page. Label it expected results. We've been very clever on these titles, haven't we? In a well-developed paragraph, you're going to explain how the planned investigation will provide evidence that addresses the initial air quality claim. You want to include a graph or an image on this page. Your graph, it might not be your actual results, but you could graph your expected results, and then you're going to see how that turns out. Or you can just put an image. Page 5 is a fun one. It's the comic page. You're going to name it experimental comic, or if you could come up with something more clever for comic, you could name it that. You're going to draw a 4-frame comic strip. You're going to use words and pictures, but stick figures are perfectly okay. And you're going to illustrate your experimental process. So it's going to be 4 panels, so you want to make a 4, divide your little page into 4, and each panel is going to explain one step or part of the experiment. All right, and you might want to consider using a comic books app. They have a lot of comic book generators out there, and you might want to consider using one of those. Color is required on this, but we do not have a color printer for you to use. So if you have a color printer at home, great, use that. If you don't have a color printer at home, you may need to just color it in with colored pencils or whatever. Page 6, we're almost there. You're going to label this page letter, because you're writing a letter to someone who has a stake in this issue. Your letter should have 2 to 3 well-developed paragraphs. You're going to explain why your investigation is important, why you're communicating with this group. For example, maybe you want to write to farmers because farmers should care about the amount of pollutants that are coming into their crops, because it's going to affect how good their crops grow, or whatever. All right. And then in the letter, you need to support your claims with some reasoning and some evidence, and politely ask the reader to take some action. So you're not just telling them about your issue, but you're saying to them, I think it would be great if you called your congressman, or it would be great if you stopped doing this because it's causing a problem in our environment, or whatever. You need to ask the reader to take some sort of action, and then you need to sign it. you should type this letter up neatly. It's going to be sort of small, like it's only going to be a half page when you get it printed out. So, you know, you want to think about your margins and stuff when you're laying it out, but you should type that out and then you can just cut it and paste it into your magazine. Page 7 is the fun and games page. You can label it fun activity, activity time, fun page, whatever. You're going to create one fun activity that's related to your topic. It might be a crossword puzzle, it might be a word find, it might be what's the difference photos. If you're a photographer, it might be a cryptogram, a maze, whatever. Include a short set of directions. If you use a word activity, you need to have at least 10 words, and obviously those words should be related to whatever the topic is. Then you're on the last page, the back cover. Label the page with 2 headers, about the author and works cited, and then you're going to cite at least 2 sources that you used for this project. One of them might be your book, I don't know, and some other site that you're going to look at, a site or an article that you read or something. And then you do a little about the author section. That's 3 to 5 sentences, and it should be written in the 3rd person. Erin Fitzpatrick Bjorn is a librarian at Jesuit High School in Portland. She enjoys reading, playing her ukulele, and I don't know what else she enjoys. Napping. That's pretty bad, isn't it? I can't even think of something I like. That's late in the day. I apologize. Then you're going to add a little photo of yourself or a selfie. Might be really fun if you actually were to do the assignment. If you took a selfie of yourself doing it, if you were doing the experiment, that'd be pretty fun. But you don't have to do that. You do have to have a photo of yourself. And your works cited needs to be in MLA format. We're only asking you to cite 2 sources, and they should be from the Clark Library page. No wikis, no Wikipedia, any of that. Be sure you have a hanging indent, that you put them in alphabetical order, and that you correctly italicize the things that need italicizing. All right. At the very bottom, copyright 2019 Seder Press. All right. You just write that. You can write it by hand. You can type it and paste it in there, whatever. And then your zine will be complete. If you have any questions, please be sure you check in with me, Mr. Lum, or Mr. Camman. Thanks.